Welcome. You should just get a warning there indicating you agree we can be recorded for the meeting. And while we want to get started on our big agenda, you can read that here in your screen. Our first order of business actually is to hear a welcoming message from our Executive Director, Kim Bimsteffer. And Kim, I'll turn it over to you if you're ready.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. So as Brian said, I'm Kim Bimsteffer. I'm the Executive Director for the department, and I want to start by welcoming you to this role and position that you've chosen to undertake. I want to welcome the returning members, and I want to thank you for sharing your historic knowledge and your expertise. And I want to welcome our new members. So whether you're returning or you're new, you are playing a very significant role in a function that is extraordinarily important to HCPF, to our members, and to our providers. And I want to underscore, this is my 6th year in this role. And prior to that, I spent 30 years in the commercial industry. And the rates were determined in the commercial industry based on negotiations. And the more power you had, the more you influenced the negotiations in that commercial space. If you're a big carrier in an area, maybe you push the provider reimbursements down. If you were a big provider system that acquired a lot, maybe you push the rates up. That wasn't a real good outcome for patients. It wasn't a real good outcome for Coloradans, or I had the privilege of serving in all 50 states. This process that you are a part of is more equitable. It's more appropriate. I want to thank you for working with our team to help provide recommendations that have reimbursements that help us improve access to our members, that help make sure that what we're providing is affordable for the state. Affordability is a critical pillar, because when rates aren't affordable and the overall budget of Medicaid isn't affordable, we have to take draconian measures like cutting everybody's reimbursement, like cutting the benefits that we have in Medicaid, like cutting the people who have access to our programs. So the balance of finding the right reimbursements to provide the solid level of access is critical. To make sure that's affordable is critical. But also to make sure that we have reimbursements that also help us close the health disparities in our state and inside Medicaid, disparities that represent inappropriate health equity to low-income people. So that the role that you have is critical. Your expertise, your ability to provide your expert input is absolutely critical. And our partnership with the department, you and external stakeholders who also have an invitation to bring their voice to the table is critically important. So whether you're in a primary care or a specialty area, or whatever avenue that you undertake, a partner, a stakeholder, I see Gretchen here, whether you're a partner, a stakeholder, a provider, your role and your voice is important. I also want to underscore the importance of you working well together, because this is hard work and sometimes it's going to bring points of tension. It might also be complex work of the various inputs that you have. So I would invite you to get to know each other, to build relationships, and to help each other through what might be sometimes tense conversations, and to know we're all coming from the same place. And that should be a place of doing what is right for Coloradans, what is right to serve low-income people, what is right to serve Medicaid, and what is right to be in partnership with the department and the General Assembly, who every day we also have to make difficult decisions. So with that, I want to wish you well. I want to invite you to partner well with the people from HCPF, who are also wonderful experts, to have grace for each other in sharing your various views, and to make sure that you're communicative, participatory, and that you really come to this role every day to meet the needs of Coloradans and to do this good work. Because again, I want to close where I began. This is important work. And the last thing that I'll say is, again, thank you. Thank you if you're returning. Thank you if you're new. And we really appreciate your public service. Any questions for me? I was either stellar or we're shy. I'm going to go with shy. So I'm going to give it another minute or 30 seconds or whatever it may be. And you could just take yourself off mute if you want, if you have any questions or. Okay, Brian, I think you're ready to take this to the next level.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, wonderful tone there. Really agree with all of that. That's really sets so much for us as we move into today. We'll put a little more color around that and some structure and so on to give you some tools and other things to work with, to interact with us throughout this morning. But before we do, we've got such a good group. I want to make sure that each of our members have an opportunity to introduce themselves. But I'll go ahead and start and have a little icebreaker for everyone if you like to help us get to know each other a tiny bit as we do this. So again, I'm Brian Poole. I'm with Government Performance Solutions. We local Denver consulting firm, and we specialize really in public sector assistance, working through strategy and operational improvements and stakeholder engagement, of which this project really fits really well right in the middle. And I'm delighted to be your facilitator and work through the agenda today. But we have a big team here to support all of the work that we're doing. And to start, I'll do our quick icebreaker, which is, you know, what makes you excited about joining this group? Why did you join? And for my part, I'll just say I'm committed to public service and seeing that all of the resources that the state has are equitably shared and offer an opportunity to better serve the people of Colorado. And so this is just one more example of a great group that does have that power and that initiative. So I'm delighted to be a part of it. And I'll hand it off to Michelle. Do you want to kick us off with your introduction, and then we'll go around with our members. Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. I am Michelle LaPlante, and I am the Rate Review Stakeholder Relations Specialist with HCPF. I'm fairly new. I joined with the department in December of last year. So I'm super excited to be working with all of our committee members and our public stakeholders. So thank you all so much for being here. Your voice and opinions and expertise are vital to this and making this work and bettering our state. So again, thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'm going to kick it to our committee members. So please, like Brian said, you know, give us your name, your title, and what made you join the Mprrac. So I'll open it up.
I'll start. If you want to start Mprrac members.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Yeah, just our members. Please.
Members.
So I'm Kim Mprrac, and I am a pediatric dentist and representing dental, of course. And I was on the previous committee, and I'm really excited for this revamped format. And I think a much more manageable size of a committee. So I am looking forward to the work. I felt the work was really important in the other format for the committee, but again, I'm very excited for this committee and the work that we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Kim.
I'm Terry Walter. I live in Grand Junction, and I work at Hope West, which is a hospice and palliative care organization with a fairly new PACE program. So I was on the I'm fascinated by the work and happy to contribute, and hope I can contribute even more so to make sure Coloradans have what they need.
Thank you, Terry.
I'm Vanita Jenkins, and I was on the committee prior to this. I'm the CEO for Senior Housing Options. We have properties across Colorado. Our home office is in Denver. I'm excited to again represent assisted living communities, Medicaid assisted living communities, and just want to make sure that our older adults and people who are receiving this service are receiving exactly what they need to continue to live out their days in affordable assisted living. And that's why I joined.
Thank you, Vanita.
Megan Adamson. I'm a family physician and I practice in Lafayette, Colorado, and I'm new to the group, but I spent the last 5 years as advisor for the American Academy of Family Physicians at the American Medical Association RVU Update Committee. And I'm just very interested in how payment to clinicians affects access and practice patterns. And I'm really excited to get involved in this group, and I'm interested to know you all and learn a lot more.
Thank you, Megan. Great to have you.
My name's Kate Leslie. I'm an LCSW. I'm a mental health provider, Medicaid provider, and solo practice here in Boulder County. And I'm really excited to join the committee. This is my first time here. I've been doing Medicaid advocacy for a long time on the behalf of mental health patients who receive Medicaid. They get their services through Medicaid. And I'm really excited to be part of this conversation.
Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. Just scrolling through, I think that Gretchen and Tim, our other members, may join in later via phone. So I think I'm just going to give it another second to make sure I don't cut anybody off. I think they may be joining later. So with that, I'm going to have the rest of our staff introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
I'll kick us off. My name is Victoria Martinez. I am the Waiver and Fee Schedule Section Manager here at HCPF. Good to see everybody.
Hello, Kevin Martin. I am the Fee for Service Rate Division Director here at HCPF, and I'm excited for the culmination of the reform that we've been doing over the past couple of years. I know it's not over yet, but I'm really excited that we've gotten this far.
Thanks, Kevin.
I can go next. I'm Jeff Lasky, the rate comparison analyst at HCPF. I've been working on this project for about 4 years.
Hi, and my name is Cheyenne Gritali. I am the Access to Care analyst at HCPF, and I've been with the team for about 2 weeks, so I'm relatively new.
Welcome, Cheyenne.
Hi, and I'm Amanda Villalobos. I'm a state plan analyst here, and I've been with the department for about 1.5 years.
Thanks, Amanda. I think that's our team, right? Oh, Erin, yes, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Ulrich. I'm a colleague of Brian's with GPS, and I will be helping to track notes for today. Nice to see everyone.
Thanks, Erin. All right. Well, thanks to everyone for that introduction. Obviously, we have an amazing team, as you can tell, with a diverse and statewide skill sets. And so a lot for us to think about as we get started. I'll just start with some quick thoughts to help get us going. As we're speaking, we're going to ask you just a couple of things. Make sure that we identify yourself if you haven't yet, just so we'll start to get to learn your voice. Everyone's got their name up. That does help a lot, but let us know who you are. And then we are recording the meeting, as you noticed at the top. So that's important for a couple of reasons. We will post the link to this to the website, and so this will be publicly available. And to this point, I want to make sure that that we don't mention anyone's personal health information. The work that we're doing here should be at the category level and not the individual level. And we don't want to disclose anyone's individual health conditions, for example. If that does happen, we have a way that we can scrub the video before we release that, but it starts to get pretty clunky, and we may, the reader experience is lost, and others on the line will actually have learned that information. So let's just make sure that we keep it at the category level and not at the individual named person level. And for those of you who may be interested, we do have a caption feature here. which is the ability to show captions while we're speaking. If you want to access that, you would click on the More button at the bottom of your screen, typically. And then there's on that menu, you'll see something called Captions. You can click on that, and then there's a Show Captions feature there if you click that. And if you do that and you don't enjoy that, you can actually unshow those captions using the same menu pretty easily. So wanted to make sure you understood those are an accessibility tool for us. We do have the chat feature open. We'd prefer our members only using the chat. We'll be monitoring that. So if you have a conversation or a topic that you want to you want to bring up during our discussions, please feel free to do that. We do tend to favor discussions using your voice and your picture. So if you are speaking, raise your hand, use the hand raising feature, and I can call you in a first come first served basis. And then we'd love to see your video while you're speaking for all of us. It just really makes a connection to who you are, and the body language and all those types of subtle cues really help improve the communication and the tone of your message. So those are just some things right off the top that we have. Michelle, did I miss anything in terms of the general orientation there? We've got some more other rules we'll come up on yet, but I just want to make sure we're covering the big pieces here.
Nope, I think you covered it all. Just to reiterate, any questions that you may have regarding anything that comes up, just put it in the Q&A box, and chat is for like chat purposes, like chat things only. So any questions that you have regarding any of the material, please put it in the Q&A box. Thanks, Brian.
Great. All right, well, let's go to our next slide then. And Kevin, I'll turn this over to you to kick us off here.
Yeah, so everybody, or hello again. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history of what's going on, what has changed recently, and so forth. Originally, the Mprrac was created out of Senate Bill 15228, and then recently amended under Senate Bill 22236. If you're looking in your own PowerPoints, those are links to the actual bills if you are interested in reading them. A couple of the big changes that happened in the recent amendment was that we changed the committee size from 24 to 7. We did have a bit of a challenge having all the seats filled and just coordinating all the efforts and such. So hopefully reducing this down to a 7-member committee will make everything a little bit more manageable. And then another big change was the cycle was reduced from 5 years to 3 years. For the new people, what I'm referring to there is that we have sort of the overall broad, everything that we're reviewing. There are a few things that are excluded because they're otherwise covered in law, but for everything that we're reviewing, it used to be split up into 5 years so that something would just get reviewed once every 5 years. Thought that was a little bit too long in between reviews, so now it's been shortened to 3 years. And let's see, some of the past outcomes of this committee is that we reduced anesthesia rates down to 100% of Medicare. We increased the UPL rates over 100% of Medicare in effort to pay for high value services, and rebalanced all service under review to ensure outliers were within a reasonable variance for the benchmark. What I mean there is just that one of our standard sort of recommendations in the past, I'm trying not to preempt anything for the future, but in the past, we sort of used the standard of 80 to 100% of Medicare was adequate. And so a recommendation that we very often had was to increase anything that was below 80% up to 80% and to decrease anything over 100% down to 100%. And let's see, go ahead and go to the next slide.
I can cover this one, Kevin. Right?
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it's really important to think about the history and how we got here. And we really are at a pivotal point in terms of the committee itself. this realignment, I think, does offer us a unique opportunity to sort of retouch, recenter ourselves and focus on those key elements that allow that really meet the mission. And with a smaller size and a more a narrower set of years from 5 to 3, many of the lessons learned that we have over the last few years become critically important. So I'll just spend a couple of minutes summarizing these. I had the opportunity last year to interview and meet with all of the participants that wanted to, and we had the ability to sort of test the waters with some new methods and some new approaches last year that we ultimately learned quite a bit from. So let me just cover these in a high level. One thing was the preparation matters. We heard all throughout last year that the more information you have with more lead time, the better prepared you can be for our meetings themselves. And so as we look through the schedule and the timeline here, we're committing to provide that information to you in advance so that you have precisely what you would need to make the types of judgments and analysis around the rates and the services well in advance. And we promise to communicate that so that the ability for you to be prepared is there. And that said, we're really expecting everyone to read and prepare for the next discussions. There were a few moments last year where we felt like maybe people didn't have time or hadn't invested the energy in that preparation. And at some points there was, sort of crickets, if I can say that, where we felt like we didn't really get the dialogue started, and we didn't get the back and forth between our membership that we were looking for. And other times when that preparation was when we made sure that was available and others did commit to that, we found we had some wonderful, really rich conversations. And so we just want to commit ourselves to that higher level of preparation all around. And if there's things that we can do as a group to make that easier for you to participate and to get the information, if you have questions, we're committed to making that possible. So please hold us to a standard that allows you to be prepared and then live up to that high standard. The second point we have here around expanded provider participation, when we go to this smaller group of 7 versus in the mid-20s, we're losing some of that direct experience in certain service areas and certain parts of the state. So, while we had some opportunity to have specialists in a number of unique and maybe niche type services, that's not the case at this point. So this is a bit of a call to action for us, using your network, thinking about those in the community and in other organizations that you may work with, for you to help us reach out and find and access providers that do this work. The department's committed to helping to provide resources, and we'll offer subject matter experts in these as well. However, with a smaller group, we just think this is a call for us to step up our ability to interact with your community, looking around what are the providers that should be participating at certain points throughout the year and throughout the 3-year cycle, and be prepared for that. This group works best when we have actual providers who do this for a living, as a participant and an active participant in the discussions. And so this is really a chance for us to pivot and emphasize we really would love an expanded provider participation level than maybe we've had in the past. And certainly with the smaller membership numbers, there's a call to action here. The third area was ensuring time for conversation. I heard this again and again in my discussions with members last year, and making sure that we as a team provide information and structure that allows you to queue up the conversation, right? To give you a topic and a focal point, and then allow the members here to work together to discuss. Have back and forth discussions, and so making sure that you have time to do your work, to get the information out, to ask questions, to follow up questions, and be prepared ultimately to make some of the decisions that we're asking of you. So we're committed to making sure that time is there in the agenda, and we want you to use that. So if there are moments when you feel that the time is not there, or you feel constricted or rushed, please let me know, either privately through chat or other vehicles. You'll have ways to reach me, and we'll try to adjust that to make sure that we can accommodate everyone here and really create that collaborative dynamic that we're seeking. Now, the fourth point around encouraging self-governing of the committee, this really emerged really throughout last year. Again, there was a sense sometimes that the role of the chair and the vice chair, which we'll get to here in a little bit today, had been shrinking over time, and that there was more in terms of what their role could be, that there was more to do. There was potentially a broader spectrum of roles and expectations for the chair and vice chair. And that I, as a facilitator, or maybe Michelle, could step back a little bit in this year and have a, more of a member-led self-governing dynamic of the committee. And so that's something we want to offer right now and put on the table. There's certainly, we'll always be here and support the conversation and work through the facilitation and so on. But there are times, perhaps, that that it's better to be self-governed, and that your roles, especially as a chair and vice chair, but also as members, are taking a more direct role in how the meeting is run. For example, and we'll give you some options here as we get into the next few steps, but this is a lessons learned, right, that we have, and we want to share and offer the opportunity here to maybe move the dynamic a little bit more to members playing a leading role rather than the department or myself playing the primary role. Of course, we're here for support and work through that. And then the last one here, pursuing collaboration. This really covers a lot of the dynamic here, but we'll have an exercise today where we talk about rules of governance in terms of how we work together. What are some of the behaviors and concepts and guiding principles to really ensure that the way you work together is positive reinforcement of those really great behaviors of listening and attending to each other. I thought Kim's comment about being graceful with each other was lovely. That really fits right into the dynamic that we're talking about here. So we'll spend some time today and on each meeting, making sure that there really is a true collaborative effort here, that each of you are heard and feel heard, and are able to trust the process, trust each other, and develop a rapport that ultimately helps us create a consensus when we get to some of the tougher decisions that we need to make, and we can rely on that collaborative effort moving forward. So I'll pause here. Any questions on some of the lessons learned over the last few years and how we're trying to address those? For our returning members, this may, well, this should sound familiar. I want to make sure that we're faithful to all the work you did last year in helping us to develop these lessons. Okay, let's go to our next slide then. That really pushes us into, our Q&A. Thank you for that. And maybe one more click here so we can get the full list. There you go. Yep, thanks. So we have 4 columns here really of responsibilities. And the idea for us is to help you understand what are some of the differences and expectations of these. And in particular, you notice I'll focus on the left column here in a minute, but the difference between committee members and our chairs. We will be electing a chair and a vice chair here shortly. In fact, that's our next exercise, so that's really why we're leading into this. But it will help us, I think, to understand, do you want to be in the chair role? Is that something you're interested in? Are you ready to nominate someone here that maybe would be a perfect person to fill these roles? But it helps to understand what are those expectations before we ask you to make any nominations. So let's start on the right side and we'll move to the left. But staff that we've met here, their role is to share data and the methodology, provide policy and program information across the board. And we're really fortunate to have the expertise we have on the team because there are so many questions that you may have, and we find that we know this team knows the answer or can get the answer almost immediately. So let's hold them to their role in terms of the data and the methodology. How do we get all this information? How do we pull it together, and so on? And then there are, as we move further through the cycle here through the year, staff's role is to help verify the committee's recommendations for the presentations to the Joint Budget Committee, for example, and the presentation of the department's recommendations. Now, those may not always be in alignment, right? We need to acknowledge that early on, but we will be faithful to the committee and what you've said. and making sure that we verify that is what your recommendation is. And then finally, on the fifth, there is the implementation of approved recommendations. So to the extent that there are changes that are made, the staff is ready to implement those as designed. And in fact, an example of that would be how we're restructuring the meeting here today to respond to that. All right. Now, as a facilitator, your facilitator, my role and Michelle's as well as she's working through the process throughout the year is to help provide a structured approach, right? Keep the group focused and progressing towards our goals. If there is relevant information, we need to work with you maybe to help share that. We may ask for and be a vehicle for you to help ask for research or other information. And then ultimately, I like to think about 4 here, which is help you as a group balance your different perspectives and try to reach, with your expertise and the help of the staff, help us to actually achieve a consensus. Unanimity in a group like this and the complexity of the issues that we're facing is pretty rare. I mean, certainly we would love unanimity where it's natural and occurs, but we don't necessarily expect that every time. That is a high bar. Where everyone would agree, for example, but a consensus is really possible. We've found where we think about what are some of the options, what are the pros, the cons, and the challenges that exist in the Colorado environment here in particular, and so what is the best thing for the people of Colorado, for members in Medicaid and so on, and that's really where we think we can help develop a consensus. So my goal is to try to do that wherever possible, acknowledging the differences that exist. Maybe there's a majority in one camp, or something favoring a certain idea, and then we have a minority opinion. I'm happy to acknowledge that where it happens, and then allow us to move forward. But certainly trying to achieve a consensus overall is my overriding goal. Now, for all of our committee members, including the chairs, by the way, we need you to actively participate, provide your expertise, and really representation for your stakeholder group. That's such an important part of this. We need you to be active here and speak up, as Kim mentioned at the top. We're delighted that you're part of this, and we really want to leverage all of that experience and knowledge that you have. Please ask clarifying questions to further the understanding, and we'll respect those varying opinions, as I mentioned at the top, and so on. But there are times I feel like, especially, people may say, well, I'm not really sure about that, or I don't understand, but somebody else seems pretty confident about it, so I'll just go ahead and trust them. Sometimes that's appropriate, but really, if you're not clear on what we're trying to agree and we're moving towards a decision, ask a clarifying question. Just try to resolve that in your mind. We want you to be confident in the decisions that are made. And then ultimately, there may be some independent research that we need from you. So we might ask you to go off and talk with people or come back with ideas. So be ready in some cases to be supportive of that. Now, all of this is leading up to the role of the committee chairs. These 6 here, these are suggestions. The chairs and the group, you do definitely have options here to adjust these or nudge these in different ways as you feel comfortable. But we've been talking about that expanding self-governance concept, and so this list here really helps, I think, fill in what are the details behind that. For example, before the meetings, we often like to meet with the committee chairs to actually finalize the agenda for the next meeting. So a week or a week and a half in front of each meeting. What is the final agenda looking like? What are the time allocations? Who are the speakers and so some of the materials that we'll be presenting, and so on. That's always a topic that's worthy of discussion, and a chair role could be part of that if you're comfortable, and we're elevating that as a potential role for the chair here. Opening the meeting. So some of the things that I've done today, for example, though, that role could fall on the chair if the chair is comfortable. Leading the members through parts of the discussion, particularly, through the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. That's been a traditional role of the chair, but and so we might see that continue this year. Number 4 here, leading the discussion among the members. I'll do that for the time being, but if and when the chairs decide that that's the role that they would like to take, that's a nice time for the self-governance aspect of this to sort of emerge. There are times when we'll have public comment, I'll probably handle those in general, but they're in internal discussions within the committee. That's something that might be a natural role for a new chair. Closing the meeting sort of formally could be a role, and then finally reviewing the minutes. So we, as we mentioned at the top, Erin is going to be taking minutes, and we'll all, as a group, review and approve those from the department perspective. And being a part of that approval, do the minutes reflect the actual conversation? Are they faithful to what was discussed, and are the decisions, carefully and thoughtfully captured in the minutes? That's a role that we could see a chair play. So I'll pause here after that talking. And are there questions about the roles and responsibilities across the board here, and in particular anything about the chairs?
I had a quick question about the independent research piece as a new member. And I know it's probably site specific, like depending on what the topic is.
Sure.
But could someone maybe from previous years give me an example of what that looks like?
Yeah, Kim, Terry, or Benita, do you want to comment on what you've seen in some of the research?
Granted, I only had a year, but for me, I don't think we were charged with that. But for me, I felt like to contribute, I had to do some study on my own. I had to look up into that area. That wasn't my where I work, and just research it a little bit so that I understood what that service was and how it was reimbursed currently.
Yeah, I would ditto that. I was looking for my unmute button, but yeah, that was pretty much what I would do if it was a service that I was not familiar with. Not only that, maybe talking to peers within my network that may have had some experience with those particular care models or services, and asking of information of them as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I paid a lot of attention to the stakeholder comments, when different things were being reviewed. So having the stakeholder representation, I thought was really valuable in learning as well.
Okay, does that help answer your question?
Is she asking if there was formal independent research?
Yeah, I kind of was. Yeah, more like
after that, I was like, I don't think that there really was. I don't think, I don't, other than what we did on our own, I know I was always looking up qualifiers and codes and understanding what they were, but I don't know that there was a formal way, other than reviewing the documents ahead of time and trying to familiarize yourself with what was going to be presented. I think that's kind of how I saw it. And, others can chime in on how they saw it, but yeah, there was really nothing formal that I recall.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a matter of what you would do to prep for any meeting. If you read something that you're not familiar with, you go back and look it up or ask other resources so that you understand what you're going to be discussing when you go to the meeting.
This is why I like the commitment to having information out sooner, because sometimes we got it pretty much at the last minute and didn't have as much time to study and do our own thinking about it. So I'm really pleased to hear that came up in your conversations, Brian. Yeah,
and please help us succeed in that, right? If there are areas that you would like more information around, and we have some lead time around that, we can respond. Sometimes we can. There are times when the data just doesn't come in as fast as we want, and Jeff or others can talk to some of the constraints that exist in that data flow. But we are committed to providing that as soon as we can.
And I did reach out to department staff independently too, if I had questions on stuff.
Yeah, that was my other question. I mean, you kind of briefly said that we would have access to HICPUF staff that would have a lot of that data or information that would be very helpful to be able to talk to them. Yeah.
Excellent. Great question, Kate. Thank you. That's exactly what we want here. Clarifying, what do you mean by X? Well done. Other questions from other members or thoughts? So probably in the back of your head, you're starting to wonder. Oh, please, Kevin, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one other comment to make there. That, this year we do have a little bit of a compressed timeline just with the initiation of the new committee and all that kind of stuff. And also we had a bit of a delay in getting the additional resources that we requested. We should be getting those soon, but we didn't get them beforehand. So we're still going to have to hire those people and train them. I will say one of the new people that we actually have the job posting out there right now is I'm going to have a new manager over the Mprrac area. So giving it even more focus. I just want to let you guys know that we're pushing some more resources into that. And so please use us as a resource to give you more information and to help you learn so that you know what we're talking about.
Thank you, Kevin. Michelle, do you know if did we get our other members online yet?
I have not seen them join yet. They were not sure if they were going to be able to join when I spoke to them before.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. If you see them hop on, I'd like to be able to give them a chance to introduce themselves just like everyone else.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. That leads us to the next slide, please. So we're ready at this point. We've talked about some of the expectations or potential expectations for the chair. After the chair nominations, we'll proceed to the vice chair nominations here. At this point, I'll open it up for questions and any suggestions. Just for the record, we're looking for, from the members only in terms of the vote, we'd be looking for a majority, right? So 4 out of 7 supporting that chair, for example, when it comes to a vote. Do we have any questions or even a nomination?
I am happy to do it, but I don't know if there's other people more qualified to do it, so I think I don't really have the lay of the land yet on maybe who is interested and, what qualifications, you would, or that the committee would look for in a chair or vice chair.
I love that you put your name out there at least. That gets us started, Kim, and we can have that conversation now. So, Megan.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we're all just meeting each other and not really sure, but I think that having been on the committee before puts you at a great advantage. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there.
That's just what I was going to say. I think especially because the chair is going to help set the agenda and set the tone. I don't know if the chair needs to facilitate the meeting. That's just me, but I think the experience that you have, Kim, would really benefit us in that.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a nomination there, I see, and a second. Let's open it up though. Others, we don't want to, I'm not going to undermine you, Kim, but I'm going to look for alternatives.
That's why I said that.
It's early on in the process.
It is. And I certainly do not take it that way at all. And like I said,
right,
there may be others more qualified than me that are out there.
Well, a humble leader is a good leader. I like that. That's nice. Other nominations, please.
Please.
I like the recommendation.
Thanks, Vanita. All right. Well, I'm hearing none. Now, we don't have a full quorum today, but we do have expectations for the chair to assume some duties pretty quickly, and we don't want to wait on this. It's important for us to make a decision here.
What is the quorum for the group?
Well, 7 would be the full, contingent, right? So we have 5, which is enough.
So, okay.
To get an odd number, right? And it's we could get to 4. That's really what I need to get a majority. So,
Is there a way to do an email vote?
I am open to suggestions.
I've served on other committees that when we didn't have a quorum, I think I don't know what bylaws read for this committee.
Well, they're pretty vague, right? We're working on
okay.
A general consensus. We do need a chair and a vice chair. That is listed. The specific method and so on to determine that is really up to us. So.
And in a smaller committee, Brian, sometimes that quorum is tough to get.
Yeah, we know.
But we
I'm
have
certainly
five.
open
We
to
have
take,
5 out of 7. We have a quorum then.
Yeah, we have
to
enough,
vote.
I think, but I don't mind communicating a vote and then offering the others an opportunity
Right.
to comment or suggest something else. And if there is a difference, then we could address that in the next meeting. Otherwise, we could move ahead, which would be our preference to make, at least for the next meeting, we could have a chair with clarity. So with that, are there, and you can use the chat here, I have a nomination for Kim for chair. If you're a member, use the chat and just type in your answer. You support Kim, yes or no? There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. Thank you. We have a chair. And we'll offer an opportunity for email response on that in our notes, that people can at least affirm that support as a potential. So that moves us to the vice chair nomination. Same process here. We'll open it up to the team. Anyone interested in the vice chair? It's a very similar role. Obviously, if there's a backup needed on the day of, right, the vice chair would step in, but the expectation is really the same in terms of the and the ability of the vice chair and the chair to adjust the role that that we have suggested in that previous slide would be important. You might discuss and say, hey, we want Brian to do, as it might be the case, Brian to facilitate the open discussions, but the other items we're all in agreement with, right? You'd have an opportunity to nudge those roles to fit your style and your preference.
So given we have 2 people missing, is that a vote we could do via email or a later time just to encourage their participation?
I'm open to ideas. I thought we might have them here, but
give me just 1 second to reread the law, because I thought it was pretty specific that we had to elect them at the first meeting. It's not specific about a lot of things, but there was something in there about the first
this
meeting.
Is one of our must do's, as I recall, Kevin, as well.
I would be willing to support. I definitely don't feel like I could be a chair, but I feel like I could support.
Thank you, Megan. We have a self-nomination. I like it.
I second.
Terry, thank you. Other nominations? And Kevin, you'll let us know if we have any wiggle room, right?
I just found it, and it is really specific on that.
Yeah, I thought we had to. Yeah.
at the first meeting of the advisory committee to be held on or after March 1st, the members shall elect a chair and vice chair from among the members.
Yeah.
A lot of the other things are sort of like a little bit looser, but that was one of the very specific things that said had to be done at this meeting.
Yep, that fits what I thought. Another nomination, perhaps, for vice chair. Okay, since we have a second, let's go ahead and proceed to a vote. We're looking for a yes or no for Megan Adamson to be the vice chair of our Mprrac. Okay, unanimous. Wonderful. Megan, congratulations. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. These things don't always go as smoothly as that. I appreciate the volunteers and the supports from everyone here to meet the letter of the law. Well done. We will put out I like the idea of in the notes offering an opportunity for people to email in for the record their support of these two, although we do have the majority that we needed, so that should be pretty clear. Okay, that gets us through to our next slide. Let's keep moving. Well done. All right, so this is a little workshop idea. We had talked about some of the rules of governance, or sometimes we call these, how we want to work together. As I mentioned at the top, this idea of real collaboration. These lists that you see here, this is just a suggestion, all right? A lot based on my experience and so on. I've been doing this a long time, but when it comes to boards and managing committees and so on, we expect to have differences of opinion, right? As I mentioned at the top, the idea that we're going to all agree on everything is a little fanciful, right? There's going to be some serious differences sometimes, and some just methodological differences and style differences and so on. But all of that doesn't mean that we can't work together really well, right? There's all kinds of opportunity to operate with grace, as was said by Kim at the top. I love that. And so I've just got a little list here. These are suggestions. And the idea is, are there best practices in terms of some of the things that we could commit to, how we treat each other, how we behave when we're working together. And so don't take these as gospel or as fixed at all. I just want them as a suggestion for this group to potentially work through some. So the way I like to think about this is probably a little long. It's 7 rules, if you will, or guidelines. Maybe it's a little many, but if there are several of these, maybe 3, 4, and 5, that everyone here could agree really capture the essence of what do we want when we work together. And the idea, of course, with these types of things is it's easy in the beginning, to say something like, one person speaks at a time, very, very easy, right? But there are others that are a little richer, tough on problems, easy on people, come prepared, right? This is a much more involved and much, richer sort of description of a rules of governance. And anything else that is out there, right, that you may have seen in other settings, you may be on other boards or committees or worked through, complicated legislation or implementation of similar types of challenges that we have. So I want to open this up. Just keep these in mind. Again, these are just suggestions. They are by no means, the only way to do this. But some of them may cause you to say, it's something like that, but maybe we could word it this way. Or I would suggest that we have a rule that's X, Y, and Z. I want to open this up. We've got a little time for this exercise here. The idea is, of course, that if we settle on these and then we get into a pickle sometimes, maybe in a month or maybe in 6 months, we can come back and reference these and say, remember when we said, we'd go easy on each other? Well, it sounds like you're getting a little hard on Megan there. Can we lighten up and live up to our rules of governance, right? It just allows us as a checkpoint to depersonalize perhaps some conflicts that we may have, and keep our focus on those we serve, yeah, the members of Medicaid, for example. So I'll open it up at this point. I'm open to ideas, suggestions. You know, I don't believe that one is right. However you want to approach it, and let's see where we go.
Well, I really appreciate that tough on problems, easy on people part a lot. I've never seen that said so like concisely. So I like that one a lot. Having been doing Medicaid advocacy for so many years, I think that's often a good reframe because the problems are really, really tough, especially in our state. I remember, you know, when the new BHA director came on, she really had this feeling that folks who've been doing Medicaid work in the state are kind of traumatized. She used that word specifically to say that like we are all really burned out and really crusty, kind of to speak, and that has past meetings that has led people to be just, I think, yeah, just really despairing in their conversations. And so the problems are really hard. So I think tough on problems, easy on people is a really great reframe because we're all here trying to do our best. You know, we really are. Everybody literally is. So if we can think about the problems being what we're trying to solve and be tough with and be, you know, sturdy towards that's a good way of thinking about it. So I really appreciate that frame a lot.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate you stepping out in front with a clear opinion. That really helps us move things along. Love it.
Brian, I think it's a great place to start. I think it does hit all the key things, and I think it really frames some of the issues we ran into previously. And I think this really brings some great ground rules for engaging meaningfully.
Is that support of all of them or some of them?
I actually like all of them. You know, I think it's good to have, you know, these rules of governance, and I think it's a good outline.
Thank you. Yeah. Other thoughts?
I think that I support all of these, and I think that although they, you know, they sound pretty common, they're not always at the top of mind if there's something that someone is very passionate about at any given time. So thank you for thinking of these and for already telling us that we'll be held accountable to them and we'll be talking about them if they become an issue. But just having them and using them as a framework, I think is fantastic.
I agree. I wouldn't take anything off either. And the only one I can think to add is a board I'm on, and they emphasize start on time, end on time, but that's a little different tone than what you have here, and I like the ones that are here.
Thank you, Terry. Do you want to suggest adding start on time, end on time, or you want to pass on that?
To me, it's a given. We have a committee time, and if it becomes a problem, maybe we add it as a.
I'm committed. I know the department is committed to this time. So
since it'll fall on me, you know, one thing we could add is, you know, respect of the agenda.
Yes, that I've seen that before. Yep. So respect the agenda.
Yeah.
For example, as a term.
Yeah.
And does that mean we can include some discussion time? I just wanted to make sure. There were sometimes the respect of the agenda means that I need to close up a discussion, for example, because we've got to start. I would ask that if there is an active discussion and there's productive discussion, that we can extend that time period just a little bit. They still respect the agenda, but I don't want to cut anyone off at 10 o'clock, for example, on the spot.
Do you want to put respect the agenda like just within reason? Because I think, sometimes what happens with these is that there are certain things that call for more in-depth discussion. and it goes over, but then there's other things on the agenda that you can kind of whip through. So in the end, you know, I think everybody, but it does fall to the chair, I think, to have some semblance of order so it doesn't, excuse me, go off the rails.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hearing if we can just say, like, we don't specifically define what tough on problems, easy on people means here, but if we say respect the agenda, and I can qualify that as, you know, we're going to maintain the flow, we're going to maintain the topics, right? You know, we could have a little wiggle room to finish up, you know, active conversations, but ultimately we try to move through the agenda as designed. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm hearing a suggestion to add respect the agenda. Do a second on that.
I think that's fine. I think that's kind of a facilitator chair prerogative to help with that. And self-governance means we would all give you input if we thought we needed something. So I don't know that we needed extra, but I appreciate the comment about it. I'm fine if it gets added.
Any objection to adding respect to the agenda? Okay.
I guess to me that it just
Oh, go ahead, Megan.
I guess it just feels maybe not entirely clear as a statement in and of itself. I mean, just from even the discussion that we had, where the other statements I feel like have a clearer understanding and stand on their own a little bit.
Okay.
And as mentioned, like I think the self-governance, like we can use to interpret that, right? Like if it's our priority to respect the agenda, then that can fall under self-governance also.
Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Are we okay to table respect the agenda and include that? I certainly, as your facilitator, I feel like we owe you that. We owe you an agenda ahead of time, right? And we'll work that out with the chair. The intent is to follow that, but we do sometimes want a little wiggle room, you know, to move a little faster where that's possible, and to respect, you know, good dialogue, good discussion when it happens. Kim, you all right? Yeah, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think, you know, in the past, I think sometimes things went on a long time, you know, and so we would run over. So I think it's more, you know, from past experience, but I also, I agree with what everyone is saying, because you never know how many stakeholders are going to be on, you know, and you want to get, if they're sitting there, you want to make sure that they do have their chance to speak. So I respect very much the comments that were made on that.
Okay, so we will, at this point, we've got what we have on the screen as our suggested rules of governance. No changes so far. And it feels like we have at least, I've heard at least 3 say they like the full list as is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great list.
Good. That makes 4. I think has everyone agreed? I know Vanita, Terry, you were good with these, right? Kim, you're comfortable with the full list? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm having a little technical issue, so I'm just gonna step away for just a second.
Okay, thanks. And Megan, you're good, right? And Kate?
Yep, I'm good too.
Thanks. Okay, and since we don't have our other members, we'll allow them to comment on these in the next round, but we'll accept these as our rules of governance for the moment. I'm certainly willing to talk through how do we implement some of these sometimes, because they can be a little vague, but I think we're getting the flow already here today, and that's wonderful. Thanks, everyone. That covers rules of governance. We can go to our next slide. And Kevin, I'll turn to you for our meeting structure.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm back. So our meeting structure here, I just wanted to give you sort of an understanding of what things are going to look like in general. So sometime we are required to have quarterly meetings. So we're going to have at least 4 meetings per year. If you want more, we can have more. If you want us to shorten the 4 meetings, we can do our best to do that as well. Definitely, we set aside, 3 to 4 hours for each one of the meetings. Getting it much shorter than that means that we would need to be very efficient, especially with a 3-year cycle instead of the 5-year cycle. But we are, if you haven't realized already, one of the overriding themes here is that we really want you guys to feel empowered that this is your meeting. Like, we already have the data. This is for us to give the data to you and for you to give us your information, your input. So these are your meetings and we can do them however you like. But in general, to meet the requirements of the statute, sometime in the beginning of the year, generally March, April, first quarter-ish, we would be sharing the preliminary data and analysis. In June, we can discuss supplemental analysis, and in the March and April meeting, if there's things that are unclear, if you need additional information, something like that, you can ask us, and then we would come back in June with whatever we can do in those couple of months to try and clarify or do additional analysis, and then we can have a discussion in June. And then we would be looking for at least some discussion around recommendations from the committee in June. It doesn't need to be final at that point because we're going to have at least one more meeting before the November report. But we would definitely prefer to start the discussion of our own recommendations earlier. And then in August, September-ish, we would meet to finalize the recommendations, refine them, do any last minute things that we need to get done. Because like I said, we do have a November 1st report that we have to deliver. So whatever we get done before then is what's going to get into that report. We can discuss afterwards, but that is a hard deadline that we have to meet as the department, is to create and deliver that report on November 1st. And that November 1st report is going to entail the department's recommendations, and there is going to be also a completely separate section for you to have your own recommendations so that hopefully we can come to agreement between the department and the committee on a lot of things, but we recognize that that won't always be the case. And so we want to make sure that there is a space for your recommendations to be completely unaltered by ours and vice versa, so that the JVC can see both sides of the issue if there are differences of opinion. And then also within that same report, I guess I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the things that the recent bill, which became law, changed is it eliminated the May 1st report. We just found that, we were referencing a lot of that information in the recommendations report already. It just created this extra burden that, we'd have to create a big official report. And so it was just sort of like a couple of months out of the year-long cycle that we were just focused on creating a report instead of discussion with you and doing additional analysis and such. So we're condensing that analysis into the recommendations report. We're still going to obviously be doing the analysis earlier on in the whole cycle, but there's there's really no reason for us to essentially report that analysis twice to JVC. So that's the overall timeline. I do also want to mention that, you know, you can see March, April, we're supposed to be discussing the preliminary data. Unfortunately, this year, because of the law, we were not able to meet with you until after March 1st. Also, we didn't have all of our committee members appointed until 2 weeks ago, so that was even after March 1st. Makes it a little bit difficult for us to get all these discussions in, but we are still going to try to do everything. If everyone's amenable to it, we would like to add at least one additional meeting in the near future, like towards mid-late April. But again, that's totally up to the committee if they're willing to meet more so that we can get the data to you and start the discussions earlier rather than later. But if you feel like you can condense everything down into the June meeting, then we can just get the data to you earlier and then just try to have the discussion later on in June. Either way works. It just sort of depends on if you would like to have a sort of a preliminary discussion with everybody online and just talking about things with the additional onus of needing to actually get together to meet. So I don't know if that's something that we need to figure out immediately, but it is something that I'd like to figure out at least before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, Kevin, I appreciate you raising that here. Actually, this might give them some time. Remember, we had chalked out potentially 9 to noon on the April 20th, 21st, or 26th as some options that where staff and myself could be available to help facilitate that April meeting. So we don't need a decision on that. That is one of the last things we have. But if members want to check their calendars right now for the mornings of April 20, 21, or 26, when we get to that point in the agenda, maybe you'll be ready to make a decision on that.
And just to clarify, that would be a separate meeting so we could actually get the preliminary data to us and you guys would present that. How long are you thinking that would take?
Well, we had 3 hours potentially for that.
Okay.
We're going to start with the 3-hour blocks at this point. Last year, we were able to close some of those in 2 hours where there was no dialogue. But as I mentioned, a big part of our role this year is to structure these meetings in a way where you have more opportunity for that dialogue and discussion and potentially other experts and so on. So we did not want to limit you to that 2 hours. We thought if we go for 3 and if we end early, okay, but we at least have your calendar blocked and a quorum, you know, for that time period.
I don't know if this is the right place to ask this question, but I was wondering, what is I know for the 3-year cycle, there are, there's a cycle for which different subject matter comes to before the committee. I think I have that, I'm saying that correctly, like whether or not it's the medical or the mental health or residential.
Yeah, we'll go into that here in a minute.
Okay, good. Thank you.
In some detail.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep. That's a great question. That's just a little more granular than we're ready at this slide, but we do have we have all that for you.
Yeah, I know that's coming up very soon. I just don't know if that's the next slide or not. But let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this was Q&A on it. Here we are. Yeah, that was actually the next thing to talk about.
Yep.
So here is what we have for the year 1 services. Again, we've already had to start with all this without input. We do want to have more input in the future. It's just because of the way the law was written that this first year is a little bit trickier. What we've tried to do here is to just put what was on the schedule for the next year of the 5-year review cycle and then add a few things. There have been a few minor movements just to try and balance various priorities. It's always difficult to like get things in the right order because everything is a huge priority all the time. So it makes it very difficult to decide on what is a slightly more higher priority than other things. And so I wanted to at least give you a second here to read over this one. And then if we can go to the next slide, which is going to have year 2. This one may look a little bit smaller, but I will point out that that first bullet with the HCBS, Home and Community-Based Services, that has a lot of subcategories, and also the waiver services can be fairly complicated because usually we compare to Medicare, and when we don't have Medicare, which that entire category and all of its subcategories does not, it makes things more complicated. And that's also part of the reason that it's in year 2 is so that we have some more time to discuss and figure out a game plan. And then if we can go to year 3. And a lot of what is here in year 3 is what was just reviewed last year. So again, trying to just balance priorities for what has already been done versus what needs to be done exactly, etc. So, and I do realize that we skipped over the Q&A for sort of the general structure timeline of the year, and also now we're talking about the 3-year cycle. So maybe if we can combine all of that into sort of Q&A for right now. I think we also, I've seen a couple of messages come through that we have questions in the chat that we need to answer. So first I'll open it up to the committee to have that discussion, and then we'll get to some of the questions that have come in via the chat.
Hey, Kevin, excuse me, how did you determine the for year 1? Because, you know, I guess, and of course, you know, I'm representing dental, but dental got pushed back to a 6-year review now. So that's, you know, so yeah, I want to understand that, and I guess just discuss that.
Yeah, and that one got pushed out a little bit because we needed to get to the behavioral health stuff. And because of the new BHA and all that. I realize that that is, like we've had some other comments come in, and like I said, it's always very difficult for us to balance everything being a top priority. And that was just something that seemed like, based on the last review, that it could wait a little bit longer. But I guess in retrospect, honestly, for all of us, I just wish that we could have had more discussion with committee before we had to make decisions.
Yeah, and I think just a couple of points, because dental has had obviously, some significant workforce issues and I know that's across the board, but we're kind of behind the 8 ball on this reimbursement versus number one. I guess, staff is commanding much higher salaries. I mean, just for example, hygiene reimbursement right now doesn't even cover the hygiene rate. so we, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I definitely, I appreciate the committee's, position and having to make some determinations, but I'm just wondering if we're going to end up doing more harm than good by pushing it out, and be in a real pickle a year from now. Or, is there some, some way we can just review this? Can we, can we do, I don't know, some ideas on what we could do? I know, and I totally appreciate the fact, but I am concerned that we're at, we're about 20% behind inflation, and cost of practices for supplies. It's just outpacing so fast that I'm concerned about provider networks and access. So I don't know if this is a place where some of the other dental people weigh in, but it is a great concern to me.
I haven't had a chance to read all the various chats and such that have come through. David, are you representing dental?
No, but I think one of the questions I have might pertain here. I represent a applied behavior analysis company, which would fall under the pediatric behavior therapy umbrella, and which is up for review here in year 1. And so my question is, for providers, whether our specialty or dental or otherwise, what's the most productive way that this committee might seek engagement? And, how might we help to shape this dialogue, or arm committee members with information about our practices in a way to support a productive conversation? So whether it's through this forum or offline, I would just appreciate any guidance that the group could share.
Yeah, Kevin, do you want to address that now, or we have a public comment section coming here in a little bit, and we can address that at that point if you like as well, Kevin.
Yeah, I guess at least for comments about like how to engage and all that, I think I would like to push that out and at least focus this conversation right now just on where things fall within the cycle. We'll definitely get back to that, David.
Yeah.
But at least for right now, I just want to focus the conversation on this piece.
Thank you. Gary?
I'm here as a dentist. I just wanted to say that this year, it was supposed to be our year as the 5th year cycle. And I would even say there were a lot of flaws last time when we did it, because dental was just added into Medicaid back then. So that the benchmark, which we couldn't base off of Medicare fees, was also made off of other states' Medicaids who had just got into dental also. So we were really new back then, and the benchmark kind of got flawed back then because of that. And we've been waiting for our turn in the cycle, and this was supposed to be it. And now we got pushed back to 6 years when we said that 5 years is too long. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Gary.
And I suppose on the flip side of that comment, and I absolutely hear you about the time frame. one benefit, at least, to being next year is that gives us some time to actually have that conversation about how to analyze it. Because right now, at least for the things that we already started this year, we had to just make our own decisions on how to analyze that and without any input. We can, I guess, what I can commit to is that we can take this back and see what we can do in this timeline. It is very short at this point to try and do any additional analysis, especially without having that defined. We can do what we've done for everything else and see if that's something that we can possibly do in the next month or so. There wouldn't be any way for us to get it done and prepared for an April meeting, but we could potentially have something, even limited, for a future meeting. I don't want to make grand promises and then break them, but I can at least commit that we will review it to see what we can do.
I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Molly?
Thank you. I apologize, my camera's off. I'm having some Wi-Fi issues here. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Dental Association, and I wanted to echo Gary's comments that the Colorado Dental Association, full knowing that the rate review was supposed to be this year, a huge Medicaid task force was built to review rates across the nation. So much work has gone in to this task force and their research by these volunteer dentists, and I'd like to see that. I'd love to be able to show you their hard work in terms of getting all the rates, compiling, doing the stakeholder analysis, and showing you where we are and where we would love to be. As everyone else said, and I appreciate that you said you're gonna try to make this happen. It's just last year when that bill was passed that said 5 years is way too long. This has to be 3. So now we are doubling it for dental. Dental's already behind and in a state of crisis for Medicaid, especially in the rural areas. And we get so many calls at the CDA from patients who are just unable to get the care they need. They're unable to, because the providers aren't available in some of these remote areas just due to the reimbursement not covering the cost of their practice of dentistry. It's not that they don't want to contribute, but they can't have a small business that's run solely on charity. And I would really appreciate the consideration of the department to let us have the review this year and let us show you the work that the Medicaid task force has done, so we can make sure that we can improve access to care, especially in these rural areas, by getting more providers involved in the Medicaid program. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. All right. Well, Kevin, I'll allow you to, as you said, go back and figure out what is possible. I know you don't have the ability to make that decision on the spot. So, but we will follow up, right, with our notes.
Yeah, and at very least, what we can do, I can promise this at least, is that the committee has complete control over what they put into their recommendations. If the committee would like to comment on recommending something that's off cycle that we haven't even provided analysis on, that is totally within your purview, and we will include whatever you would like to put into your recommendations. So I don't want you to think that we're going to edit your recommendations or we can't include all the comments. We're going to have to make it consumable for the JDC, but if you have just recommendations that you would like to put forth that are even outside of the services that are being reviewed for the year, that's totally within the committee's purview.
Great. Yeah, great point. Excellent point. Okay. So that leaves us Here, any additional questions? I'm kind of pooling questions in chat, and there's one in the Q&A that we'll get to when we get to the full closing questions. Anything else on the year 1, 2, and 3 services and everything Kevin has presented here, especially from our members? Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, next slide then. Yeah, so we're at our questions. This really opens up the topics that we have. We have 2 questions just to seed some discussion here, and then we'll work through the questions that have been shared in chat. There's one in QA, and then we'll open it up for public comment after that. But for now, this is just our committee members. We have this question for you for discussion, and Kim, you feel free to assert your new role here as chair if you like to pipe up early. But do members of the committee prefer to meet more often than once a quarter, or allow for shorter durations? We've suggested potentially meeting in April, right? And I've given those dates to catch us up for this year, and then that quarterly schedule that we've shared. And then we're looking at those 3-hour meetings, but sometimes we'll finish in 2 if there's, you know, a real consensus or a no discussion based on past practice. So I'll open it up for committee members. How do you feel about this issue?
I can see merits on both sides. I can tell you sometimes when the meetings do go over, members do need to drop off because they've allotted so many hours, you know, for the day. And, you know, so I know when the meetings have gone over, there's, you know, there's not as many committee members able to stay. So I'm curious to hear really what the committee wants to do, because I'm open to either one. I just want it to be productive, impactful, and efficient.
Yeah, thanks, Kim.
I'm open to the April catch-up meeting and once a quarter. I'm not opposed to more often, but once a quarter, that cycle seemed to work okay in my limited experience. It's a lot of content and it's hard to break it up sometimes.
You know, Terry, that's exactly what my question was to the committee. Is it too much? Are the 3 hours, like, you know, are people, it's a lot of information, you know, and is that 3 hours, is it digestible, you know, versus having it in shorter, more intense spurts? I think that's really my question.
Thanks, Kim. Reactions?
I like the idea of the April catch-up meeting and then having the meeting in quarters with information being sent out well enough in advance so that we could do some study and work on our own to be prepared, better prepared for the meetings.
Thanks, Vanita. Other input on this question?
I also support having the catch-up meeting, and I think my concern about having more frequent meetings is there's always the, you know, intro and wrap up, and that just like having a longer time will allow for more discussion. And I don't think that it'll necessarily make for any shorter time to meet more frequently. So I support the quarterly.
Thank you. Really clear.
And I just defer as a new member to people from previous years.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read the tea leaves and propose that we do schedule an April catch-up meeting. I think everyone so far has agreed to that, and that we stick to the quarterly schedule. I'll offer, though, there are times when you may not want that. You may want an extra meeting. So I don't think you're foregoing any of that at this point. I think if this is your meetings, right? If you learn that there's more discussion that you want and you really, as a committee, agree to do so, we can change that, right? Maybe it's you want one more in August or something like that because you feel like you're getting behind or something. So while we can agree at this point to the quarterlies, I just want you to feel like, you know, there's still an option in there if needed to call for a special interim meeting or something like that. Good. Okay. I have got a second question that we're seating here just to get you going. And actually we have a third also from staff that we're going to pop in right after this. And then we'll start to open it up to everyone else. So here we have a question. There have been some times we email a lot of information and we've had reports of people not aware of information, or maybe they're not following with the latest information. The department is suggesting a read receipt feature that we know you've been able to receive and have this information. This is part of our preparation ethic here, just making sure people are accountable for when we do send out additional details. Would you be comfortable with us attaching a read receipt? You know, maybe holding you a little more accountable that you have received that and are going to begin your preparations after you open that email.
That would be just fine.
I have one yes. Thanks, Megan.
Fine by me.
Ditto.
Yeah, I'm
Any-
fine with you.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That was easy. Okay, let's see. Michelle, you had one for us, right?
Yes, thank you, Brian. All right, I had one more question. I'm sorry, there's no slide for it, but another question posing to the committee is everybody okay with seeing each other's email addresses on email communications, calendar invites, and everything like that? In the past, we've blinded it just for privacy, but we want to make sure, you know, we want to be transparent. We want to just get your guys' opinions and views on this. So is everybody okay with sending a big group email with everybody's email addresses visible? Or would we like it private?
Is it just committee?
Yes, it would just be the committee, like for agendas or PowerPoint presentations, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Me too. That was going to be my question.
Great.
Does it include department staff that are on the committee?
It could.
I'm just asking. I don't have a preference, but I'm fine having my email show.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It looks
And
like
I guess just one thing that sort of connects to the past. I don't think that we have any indication that it's going to be a problem in the future, but and honestly, this was even before my term as overseeing the entire committee, but in the, I guess, more distant past, there was an issue with committee members conducting official committee business outside of the meetings because they had everyone's contact information. There's not really any way for us to prevent that, but I do at least want to caution you against that. It's fine to have discussions. There's no reason that you can't like ask each other questions or like talk about things. But as far as like, you know, I'm going to vote this way or that way on certain things, like that would be official business that we have to have in a public forum because this is a public committee. So honestly, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know where that line is, but I just want to at least let you understand that that has been something that has come up in the past that we want to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, great point. We do ask that you don't conduct official business anywhere but here, right? This is a public meeting and we have all the structures and transparency here to serve exactly that purpose. Well said, Kevin. All right, so we've got some things in chat that I want to address right now. Some of these have been answered, so please help me. David wonders, wondering if meeting structures will include input from external non-members. The answer to that is yes. We'll have a public comment section in every meeting. At this point on this meeting, it's at the end, so you've been able to hear all the material and we'll be able to accept comments. I like 1 to 2 minutes for each person for those if we can. Allows you to get your main point across and then allows others to speak as well. If there is an email address, maybe we can share that in the chat to provide comments to the department, which we used last year a little bit. If you're not able to participate in the meeting, you can still contribute your thoughts via email. Michelle or someone, can we commit to drop that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other, those are my answers to the question. Any other clarifications or nuances I may have missed, Michelle or Kevin?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, yep, great.
Yep.
Let's see, I got wondering when opportunities to add members to the committee. That's been answered, I believe, by Victoria. Members will be appointed until 2027. Interested parties can submit and reach out as defined by legislation. Thanks, Victoria. Then we had Jennifer's question around the actual timeline. That was answered by Victoria as well. I won't read that whole paragraph, but that's there in the chat from 10:38 a.m. And Jennifer had a follow-up question, maybe curious on the timelines when we would report to the JBC. I believe we have that in November, but I want to make sure department staff answers that one.
Yeah, anything to do with so year 1 is this year, which all happens within the November 1st report, which then if it fits within the broader state budget and all that kind of stuff would go into effect July 1st of 24. And then year 2 would be reported November 1st of 24 and go into effect July 1st of 25, etc. I guess I could also mention that there have been times where, you know, resources have just been too tight and recommendations have not been taken up in the year that they were reviewed. In those times, we have recycled recommendations to subsequent years. Just sort of reminding the JDC that, hey, this was a recommendation that you did not take up last year, but here it is. Just keeping everything as fresh and equitable as possible, because we definitely don't want anything, or we don't want an entire subset, like an entire year of categories to just not be taken up for like an entire 6 years because there's one tight year that adversely impacts them. And so we would continue to remind the JVC about those recommendations for future years.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. We're almost ready for public comment. I have one other request, actually, and this goes to our members. If I could just ask you, I know you use your window, your name in your Zoom field, like I have Brian Poole GPS listed as mine, and I'm just gonna, for example, put that into chat. I had a request just to make sure we get your name and your organization, your full name, whatever organization you want to associate with for purposes of the committee. We want to make sure we get that accurate in our notes. So you may have said that at the top, and I don't know if we got all that. So just drop in how you'd like to be referred to in the notes. It might be your name, your role. You may have your position or your role and your organization that we had at the top. We want to make sure that we get all that right. And if you have a particular way, if you want your name spelled or anything else, this just for our members, please drop that in, and we'll continue to refer to you in those roles with those titles as you prefer. Yeah, thanks, Kate. I see you're already all over it. Appreciate it. All right, While that's proceeding, let's move to public comments. Again, 1 to 2 minutes here, please. Remember, we don't disclose. Just a final reminder for all of our public comments. We do not disclose public personal health information. Please don't identify any individuals or conditions that may be out there. We need to protect their privacy. And with that, I'll open it up to Amanda, please.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Nice to meet everyone. So I'm sure you saw that we kind of came in hot here. We've got some ABA or pediatric behavioral therapy providers on the call from all over Colorado, not just with the organization I'm with. I'm with Action Behavior Centers, but even some mom and pop providers. Just to be really clear and concise, we had a meeting actually back in December. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with what's going on. End of December, we were originally told we would be getting an answer by around the holiday season of a potential emergency rate adjustment, and then things kind of got shifted around. End of January, we finally got an answer from Gainwell saying that this meeting would be held and there would be, maybe it was implied there would be a decision or a conversation that could be had. And so I just wanted to be really concise to really take care of your guys' time as well, so we don't have a bunch of people kind of jumping on this topic. But just wanted to kind of get a little bit of an understanding of maybe where we sit with pediatric behavioral therapy, not just given the current situation with inflation, cost of living. I'm sure you guys are aware of it being in Colorado, 23% right now. It's pretty rough for our providers, our paraprofessionals. And so we just want to kind of get an understanding and maybe an idea of where we sit right now. And I know all of us would be really happy to provide any data and then any additional factors that come into play. So I'll go ahead and let you guys take the mic on that.
Thanks, Amanda.
Amanda, I can address that a little bit because I was part of the meeting that we had in December, and thank you so much for attending this meeting. We have been continually analyzing the data and going back and forth with our policy specialists to determine a path forward. We are still in process of analyzing the service as it is and have reached no conclusions as of yet. We have taken all the input that has been provided, and that will be part of our analysis reporting.
Okay, great. If there is, sorry, just a follow-up question that I want to respect everyone's time. If we have additional feedback to provide, would we just use that email that you provided, or would there be a better email specific to this service?
No, that email that we've provided in the chat is the best one. So if any additional information is needed, or you feel like you would like to provide additional feedback, please feel free to reach out to that HCPUF_rate review at state.co.us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Just before we get to the next questions, just as a clarification, I see some of our public members dropping in your name and organization. Appreciate that, but we don't need that particularly. We can feel free to comment. I just wanted to make sure, especially for the members of our committee, that we got your full titles, as we'd like to be referenced going forward as members of the committee. So everyone else, thanks for that, but we don't need that from you. All right, I've got David, and then we'll go Jose after David.
Thank you, Brian. And firstly, just want to thank everybody that's on this call, and Victoria for the call that you helped to host in December. Really encouraging for providers like ourselves to be able to engage with folks and kind of peel back the black box that sometimes is the payer organizations or state funding organizations. As with Amanda, I represent an applied behavior analysis company, also attended that call in December, and just wanted to reiterate some of the urgency that she spoke to. We expanded into the state of Colorado 3 or 4 years ago and are one of the largest providers in the state of this particular service. We operate 8 centers currently, and unfortunately are not profitable in the state. The Medicaid rates that are offered are not financially sustainable. And as a result, we're forced to have challenging conversations internally, which include whether or not to close all of our locations and exit the state entirely. And we're grateful for this opportunity to engage, but certainly appreciate any communication that this group or other colleagues could provide as urgently as possible, so that we can obviously, hopefully avoid taking such draconian measures and continue to serve the Colorado Medicaid community. So thank you for this opportunity and thank you for the consideration.
Yeah, thank you, David. Jose?
So hi, my name is Jose Mena, and I'm the dental director. And this is Michelle Montroy. She's the executive director, and our organization is Dental Aid, and we serve population in Boulder County, everywhere, but specifically, we're located in Boulder, Louisville, and in Longmont. And so I wanted to thank you for the opportunity for input, and just hoping that you might consider decreasing the review cycle. We find ourselves in a situation in which a lot of providers in our area have stopped accepting Medicaid patients, due to the increased costs in staffing, supplies, and one of the things that we've found is people have been coming to us because other providers just have just stopped taking Medicaid patients. So I'll let Michelle say a little bit about some of the things that we're trying to do to continue to serve the patients that we serve.
Thank you. We are in a similar situation than what I've heard others say on here, where the cost of just the employees to be here to assist the dentist with the procedures is higher than it ever has been. And it does put us in a difficult situation, even receiving subsidies from our local governments. We're still in a situation where we're having to structure the patients that we see in a way to where we're not taking a loss every day. So it's rather urgent, and we want to provide adult services as well, like crowns and things that require lab work specifically. And typically the cost that we're reimbursed just barely covers a lot of those lab fees, not even including like the time that everyone's put in to give those patients the care that they need. So we want to be able to keep the access open to the members, and it's just really trying to find a way to do that without having to limit the amount of patients we can see that have Medicaid.
So currently our patient population is about 60 to 70% Medicaid. We foresee that population increasing due to the fact that other providers have not been able to continue to treat Medicaid patients. As an organization, our goal is to increase access to care. So that's why we would like to see if you guys would consider reducing that cycle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jose. Gary.
Oh, sorry. Gary, I'm not sure if you were about to say the same thing, but I was at least going to mention reducing the cycle at this point is very challenging. Like, we've already spent about 6 months producing the analysis and the data for what is on the schedule right now. So anything that we can do going forward, I mean, dental is already as close as it can be within the current setup, excluding doing something extraordinary like trying to do a very condensed analysis here in the next couple of months. And I do want to assure you that we are going to take this seriously. We are going to see what we can do. Anything we can do is going to be very condensed and not as robust as we would like to do everything else. That's just the nature of the resources that we have available to us. And so I will absolutely look into seeing what we can do for it. But there's not really any way that I can reduce the schedule at this point, because it's already like as soon in the schedule as it can be.
Hey, Kevin, I just have a question. If we do, like you're kind of talking about a condensed review, how does that impact then when we're up for a full review?
I am open to leaving it on for next year. I don't know exactly how the JVC would take that, just because it is a completely new JVC.
Right.
There have been times in the past where, you know, we've reviewed things multiple years in a row, both at their request and not at their request. And at least with the old members, reviewing things multiple years in a row, or putting things forth to them multiple years in a row when they did not request it can be a little bit off-putting, just because they feel like we're nagging them. I think, I'm not sure exactly how that was taken or how it would be in the future. And I don't want to say that that is not a reason not to do it. I just want to at least give you the information about like how it can be perceived if we are doing the same service multiple years in a row.
That's my question. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Kim. Gary.
And Gary, sorry, I jumped in front of you there. Go ahead.
It's right, no problem. So I'm wondering if let's say dentistry does go the avenue of an off-cycle review, what's the on certain procedure codes, what's a reasonable number of codes that we could do in an off-cycle review, and then possibly get a full cycle review next year? Do you have an answer for that?
What I'm trying to do is figure out how to explain like our process and what we can or could possibly do and might not be able to do. So I can tell you for sure, one of the things that we're not going to be able to do is during our normal process, we receive information from the all payer claim database about access, provider participation, that kind of thing. We have to request that information well in advance. And so I don't know for sure that we wouldn't be able to get that, but I'm highly doubtful that we would be able to provide that kind of analysis. So it's not so much about the number of codes, because, you know, if we're looking at 20 codes versus 100 codes, as long as, you know, there's a comparable resource out there, it's not really that much more effort. It's more about the different analytical metrics that we do. Some of them are just not possible to do within a compressed timeline. Does that help?
That helps. So if we were like to provide benchmarks of like what other states are at and stuff like that, without the analytics, that wouldn't really matter.
Right. And, you know, we can put all sorts of different information in there. We're not tied to exactly what kind of data we provide within this report. So, you know, please send us whatever you got to that email that was put into the chat. Having direction from the beginning definitely helps. because honestly, that's where a lot of our time goes at the beginning of the analysis, is just going out and collecting information, because that's a big chunk of time there, is just finding something. And even when we're looking directly to, say, Medicare, sometimes that information is just not readily available, and it takes a while to dig it up. And I guess that's another question here. Considering what we can and cannot do with dental, are there good resources out there that anyone can point us to for the dental rates to compare against? We'll go and do our own research, but if you can give us a starting point, that definitely helps.
So if I were to send a bunch of recommended benchmarks and percentages to you guys, that would help in your process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. All right. Other public comments. Thanks everyone for being willing to share your thoughts here. This is how we get information and better making decisions. Amanda.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I know I already spoke. I'm seeing a lot of my colleagues in the community here in the chat for ABA specifically, kind of explaining the claim of what's going on. And I think just getting maybe some guidance from you guys on, you know, in this situation, what do we do as providers? It sounds like the dental community might be experiencing a lot of what we're experiencing as well, where we're at an impasse of having to make some pretty crass decisions of potentially causing more children with autism to grow on a wait list that's already sitting at several months to a year, just simply because the reimbursement for services at this time are not something that are equitable, let alone profitable enough for us to pay for our clinics in a growing of cost economy, while several people leave the community of ABA as practitioners, but also individuals as well in Colorado. So I think my ask here is just, you know, what advice would you give us in a situation like this? You know, we're here just kind of begging for any sort of advice as practitioners, where we have a bit of a moral quandary that we're experiencing because we're ethically bound to continue to treat patients. And this puts us in a very compromised ethical position, which I'm sure Dr. Tamash can speak a little more eloquently about the ethics involved, as well as some of the metrics involved with treatment itself. But just kind of trying to get from anyone on this committee advice. Victoria, I know that you gave some great advice speaking about how you guys are still analyzing the data, but until this happens, which I think it may be a big question mark, what do we do as practitioners when we're currently at a net deficit for treating patients in Medicaid? Yeah, and David, great point. 5 major companies, big ABA companies, have closed their doors in the past year alone. And there's 5 other that are teetering on the edge of pulling out services. I know that David Bradis also just mentioned that they're considering pulling services. I'm sorry to bring this up again. I just think we might need an answer. We have many people that are here just seeking guidance on the situation.
Thank you, Amanda.
I guess at least from the department perspective, I don't think that we have the right people here. We have all of our numbers people and the people that are running the committee here. We don't have anyone that deals with the policy for ABA on this call. I can invite them to the April meeting. I can commit to that, but this is definitely well outside of my expertise, just because we're much more numbers focused towards broad categories as opposed to specifically focused on your subject matter. Yeah, I really just don't feel qualified to give you any kind of advice. And I'm not even sure if anyone else in the department feels qualified, but I can at least invite them to the next meeting. So I'm sorry, I can't give you an immediate answer on like what to do. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more than that, but the one thing I can do is invite the subject matter experts to the next meeting, which is, coming up here in a month.
Thank you, Kevin. That's really helpful because really any amount of time delaying services or pausing services or cutting services is really damaging to the progress of these patients. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda.
And can I just speak as a committee member? I know I'm a new member of the committee, but prior to my work here, I'm a provider and was, Amanda, more in your role advocating for mental health services specifically for children as well as adults. So I know, Amanda, how you feel. I was in a similar position where our rates were getting cut and it was really difficult and really scary. And our providers that we worked with were advocating for that to be heard. So I just want to echo that you're doing the right thing, that you guys are coming here and getting your voice heard. And just really support you in those efforts. I really want you to know that I hear you. As a member of this committee now, though, my understanding is that the way we work is that it's much slower than maybe what you're advocating for. So we're going to hear the information in April. We'll make recommendations. You guys are in that first year cycle that's this year. Then we make recommendations, and then the Joint Budget Committee will hear them. And that's not till November. And I think what Victoria was saying, at least as representative of HCPF, is that and Victoria, I don't want to misrepresent you, but they don't do emergency rate adjustments outside of that. So at least for our work here at this meeting, it's this committee that we do. We hear those comments in April, and then we'll make recommendations for the JBC in November. And so let me know if I've misrepresented any of those things in terms of other places to advocate. There are many other ways to do that. Advocating directly with your representatives in your districts, advocating, like listening to the subject matter, people who will come next meeting. There are other places to get your voice heard, coming to the JVC meeting, advocating for the JVC members that are a member of that committee. Those are other things you can do to make sure that your voice is heard. And I hope I didn't speak out of turn. I'm sort of wearing two hats right now, so please let me know if that was inappropriate.
No, that's totally accurate. And thank you for that, Kate. Yes, because we as the department do not have the authority to take any kind of emergency rate action. And that was explained to us very explicitly. And so, yes, I would definitely recommend that you follow the steps that Kate has outlined of attending the JVC meetings and continually engaging with this process as rate review. That's probably your best bet. However, like she said, this process is kind of a time-consuming one where no immediate action will come from this, just as it is as the analysis portion of it. And then the recommendations aren't made until November for the JBC. So just to kind of put the exclamation point on that we are still required to follow the timeline as outlined in our Senate bill.
Thank you so much. I appreciate a little more clarification on that aspect.
And for our other members here who've already spoken, we generally have a rule. We have one opportunity for public comment in each minute, or 1 to 2 minutes each. I realize this is an important issue for all of you. This is not the only moment you can share your thoughts. Again, there's the email and there's other vehicles for you to contribute. I do want to make sure, if we haven't heard from people already, that we have that opportunity. And Ken, I think we've just seen text from you. I don't believe we've heard from you, and I'm sorry if we have. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you. I just wanted to, as the president of the Colorado Association for Behavior Analysis, as representative of the community behavior analyst. We would love to continue this conversation and just what we're working with Gina and other members of HICPUF to address these concerns. There are several concerns going on that connect. One is the denials, the partial denials, the rates. So we're experiencing, as representatives of the constituents of the community behavior analyst, this dangerous trend in capacity issues. It's already been mentioned that we're seeing providers leave because of those issues, but we're also seeing capacity issues for those that are willing to sort of dig in their heels. But it's a dangerous, and I want to use that term, dangerous state where the individuals, the CDC just came out with it's 1 in 36 prevalence. So we're seeing more and more people who need this, who need pediatric behavioral therapy, but we're seeing an opposite here in the state of Colorado of being able to provide those services. So any guidance that you guys can have, I appreciate where you guys sit. We would like to as COABA, we would like to engage with HICPUF and with you guys and others on how to address this dangerous trend.
Thank you, Ken. David?
I hope you can hear me. Sorry, I'm not incredibly
go ahead.
technologically proficient. My name's Dave. I own a company. I've owned a few companies. I'm a psychologist and a BCBAD person again. I'm also talking about the PBT. I just wanted to share with you guys, one, I really appreciate this open model. What led, I think, a lot of us to be here was in our meeting in December, we were informed that because we didn't even know what Mprrac was. It didn't come to you guys in 2019 when the program was first reviewed, when it changed over from waivers to EPSDT, that we missed the boat. That it's kind of like a weird retro condemnation that because 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't even know you guys existed, we weren't able to provide information to you. And so we are very clearly wanting to provide information to you guys, knowing that we've already missed the boat. But if we continue to miss the boat, we will, the whole program will fall. And so I just want to give you guys that context. And again, thank you for it. And we have so many people with so many resources to share out to help you understand this. And really, that's it. I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. All right, any new public comments?
I guess I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. I want to reassure the CBD community that you are fully on the boat. And this is, I understand the pressing nature. However, this is the quickest that we can act. To some extent, in the opposite situation, that is beneficial and sort of the whole checks and balances of the American government process. We're not allowed to do anything sort of unilaterally. Unfortunately, that does mean both up and down. So you are in the correct process. It will go into our recommendations. We are reviewing it this year. And that is just the nature of, I guess, government in general, is that we're on extended timelines. So we hear you, and we will put all of that information into the report. And I guess one other thing sort of tangentially, and this is maybe a point more for the committee, is that building off of what David said about them missing the boat last time, this is something that we want to correct for the future. We want to have the correct people in this space to be able to provide their opinions, to provide data, to provide just information in general. So anything, and I guess even the public that is on this meeting, anything people can do to help us reach out to the correct organizations or people for the services that are being reviewed in each year would be extremely helpful. That's something that I don't have a lot of at the moment. We are building a repository, or we're planning to, because right now it's a little bit disorganized with exactly how we would incorporate all those various different categories and services. But that is something that we are actively working on, is to sort of consolidate that, at least for this process, so that we can outreach to the correct individuals and organizations and so forth.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Any new public comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Ellen asked a question in the Q&A box that Kevin pretty much just answered, but just to piggyback, her question was, how will we as a department communicate to relevant stakeholder communities when there's an opportunity for public comment on their rates within the group? So we'll definitely post any information that we have on our meetings, when they are, agendas, PowerPoints, all of that on our website, which I'll post in the chat soon. And then, yes, we're also relying on you all here to invite those different members of the community to the meetings coming up. And we will do our absolute best to make sure that we are also inviting them. We may have to rely on you all to let us know who those people are. But as long as we have that information, we'll definitely do our part to make sure that we get the word out about these meetings so that they have the opportunity to speak about their rates. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. All right. Hearing no further new public comments, I'll give you 10 more seconds in case you're stuck on mute or something. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is precisely why we have these meetings, precisely why you've joined us. We've gotten a lot of information and shared that with you. For our new members, welcome. For returning members, thank you, and welcome as well for coming back. We're going to start putting some information in the chat in terms of how to reach out. There's that email address again. Michelle will drop in the website. I'll just update and say, you know, we're going to collect our minutes and work through these, clean them up. You know, Kim and Megan, if you're comfortable, we'll clean those up internally, at least make sure they're workable. And then before we post those, if you're comfortable, we can have you review those. Let us know if that's not something that you want to do or you want to pass on that. But that's one of the roles that we had highlighted for our new chairs. So we'll give you an opportunity to test those waters here within a week. We'll commit to posting those and all the documents within 1 week from today, making sure that we've scrubbed the videos and so on. Oh, thanks, Kim. Yep. Yeah, we'll post those within 1 week. And then we have our contact information. And I think, Michelle, you were going to adjourn our meeting unless there was any other business.
Yes, if we could go to the next slide, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did want to agree. Do we have a date for our members? April 20th, 21st, or 26th for that April meeting?
My preference is Friday morning, the 21st. It would be hard for me to do the other ones.
Motion for the 21st.
I can do the 20th or the 21st.
20 or 21. Thanks, Megan. 20 or 26 for Kate. Shoot. Yeah, that's tough. Kate, you can't make the 21.
Just have everyone's individual preference right now because we need to outreach to Tim and Gretchen as well.
Yep.
So we'll just go with the majority. However,
yeah, we have to do that. We've agreed we need to meet, and those 3 days are the only ones Kate, you'd move a bunch of stuff. It looks like that's probably our best chance at this point, the 21st, but we can't commit to that, as Kevin mentioned. Let's hear from our Gretchen and Tim as well. And we'll do that outreach immediately and get back to everyone to hold the date. Have we heard from everyone? Let's see. Oh, there you are. Thanks, Terry. Okay, yeah.
Great. Okay, so I will definitely get that outreach going today, so that way we can decide on an official date for our next meeting. If we could go to the next slide, please, Cheyenne. Oh, and then there's the website again. I did put it in the chat. And then one more slide. Oh, and then one more slide. All right, there we go. So again, my role is the rate review stakeholder relations specialist, is to make sure that our committee has everything that you need in order to be successful. So please feel free to reach out to me for any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. Of course, public stakeholders on this meeting can email me as well. If there's a question regarding anything up for review or the schedule, anything like that, the best email is that hicpuff_rate-review@state.co.us, which again is in the chat, because multiple people are on that email address. And just in case I'm out or something like that, it's going to go to multiple people and you're going to get an answer quicker. But again, please feel free to reach out to me, michelle.laplante@state.co.us. For anything Mprrac related, I'm here for you. Also, my manager, Victoria Martinez, is on the call as well. And her email address is up here too. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And
can I ask a quick question, Michelle? Not to interrupt you, but so April meeting, that first year cycle, is a lot of folks that I might be sort of representing in terms of constituents. So there's behavioral health, there's a bunch of other mental health providers in that section that, so if they want to come to the public comment section, or they want to add in information like the ABA community is doing today, I would send them to the rate review email that you sent, and that's sufficient for them to add if they have additional data they want us to have. Is that where they would send it to?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Great question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right, and with that, I think we're ready to close out our very first Mprrac meeting. So I'll defer to our new chair here, Kim. Do you entertain the motion to adjourn?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? So all in favor of adjourning today's meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much to everybody who was on this call today, and all the hard work that the staff has put in as well. Brian, thank you for facilitating, and I look forward to the April meeting.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Y'all too. Be safe.